Hello guys, welcome back to the Beastie Room. I thought today we'll have a little recap on the room itself and answer a few of the questions that we've been asked recently. And by God, we get a lot of questions. Lots and lots and lots of questions. So, one of the things that we've been talking about is the general upkeep of our room, how we heat it, how we light it, how we do all sorts of things. And some of this has been trial and error, and some that we've been mucking around with, and some things that we want to change for next year. It'd be nice to change a few things. Some things have worked, some things haven't. So heating. One of the things we often get asked about is heating, and everyone is concerned at the moment about the cost of heating their tarantulas, their spiders. Now, in here we use an oil-filled radiator which has a built-in thermostat, and we just set that to whatever temperature we want it to be at. Now, one thing I will say is any kind of heating that you are using, no matter what it is, don't trust the gauge on the actual article that you're using. So with our oil-filled radiator, it's got a set dial on there, so it's digital, and it will come up with 24, 25, 26 degrees. Don't just think that because you've got it set at 24 degrees is what your room is going to be. 9 times out of 10 it isn't. These things are not particularly accurate when they're calibrated. So it's very, very important that you measure the temperature of your room with something that you know is reading the right temperature. Now for us, we use these little temperature gauges in here. They also check our humidity as well, and we know that they are pretty accurate. They're pretty good. We also use on our incubator here, and these incubators aren't just for baby spiders in terms of as an incubator. We can also use them to house our slings as well. So if we want to keep a constant temperature on our very small slings, we can put them in here as well. And this is a really cool idea. If you've only got, say, I don't know, 20, 30 slings, and they're all in small little pots, get yourself a second-hand reptile vivarium like this, put a heat mat along the back, on the back wall, and put it on a thermostat and use that to house your slings, because now you can heat that much cheaper than you can heat your main room. So, you know, you're cutting your costs all the time. Now, we have a pulse thermostat on our incubator, and I would strongly advise anybody, if you're using any kind of heat mats, heat cables, anything like that, spend the extra money and buy a pulse thermostat. And a pulse thermostat, basically, it affects the way the power runs through. If you use a mat stat, when it reaches its temperature, it switches the mat off. So then it goes cold, it goes under temperature, it switches back on until it reaches temperature, then it switches off. So it's on, off, on, off. It's a really, really poor way of actually dealing with a situation. With a pulse thermostat, it actually slows it down. Don't ask me the technical ways because I haven't got a clue, but it literally pulses energy. So your heat never actually goes off. It just maintains it at the correct temperature. So it's very, very accurate. Now with the thermostat, you'll see on your pulse thermostats, there is a dial on there and you've got all the numbers for all the temperatures. And it's a common mistake to actually plug it in, turn it round to say 80 degrees, and then think you've got 80 degrees. If you're unlucky, you will cook everything in there. If you're unlucky, it will freeze. So, you know, that's the two obscene ends of the scale, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. So, put a thermostat inside that you trust, and then you set your dial according to what this is telling you, not what the box is telling you. These boxes are notoriously bad. They are not set up correctly, so do not trust the dial on your thermostat. They just don't work. They're not accurate. So That being said, that's how we do our small stuff. And like I say, we do our room on an oil-filled radiator, and that keeps this whole room lovely toasty warm, just where we want it. Now, we often get asked, do we have a daytime and a nighttime temperature? I personally don't bother. I don't see the need for that. We don't really need it. And this is because our spiders and reptiles in general, if we're not breeding them, there is no need to worry. We can keep them at a fairly constant temperature without any harm to them at all. And one of the reasons we can do this is because they are very, very adaptable. So there is a huge temperature range for most of the spiders within the hobby. So we can be anywhere from the 60s degrees right away up to the sort of high 80s if you're looking for hot spots. Now, that is a massive, massive temperature range. And it's the same with humidity. There is a huge range that they are capable of dealing with. And this is why you often hear me say, don't get hung up on the numbers. They are just there as guides. So we keep our room at around about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and it works perfectly well. Now we can adjust that 80 degrees in the room because in the roof of the room, it's warmer. It can often get up to 85 to the high 80s, low 90s in the very top of the room. When we get down onto floor level, we can be dropping down to sort of like about 75 or so. Maybe it's 72. So there is a massive difference within the room that we can adjust. We can put spiders that like it cooler, we put them lower down. Spiders that like a little bit warmer, they go a bit higher up. If we've got egg sacs on the go, especially things like our Poecilotheria, we put them higher up. They like that hotter temperature. And it saves us having to worry about heating individual enclosures or individual shelves and things like that. We can do it all off of the room temperature. Now this, for us, is an ideal situation. It's really, really cool. If you've got stuff at home and you've only got maybe a few spiders, say for argument's sake you just have a shelf like this, if you want to heat your shelf, we can use heat cables. And a good thing to do there is if you go to your garden centre, they sell heat cables to go in the bottoms of seed trays and along seed beds. So they use them to warm the soil. They are cheaper than going to your local reptile store and buying a reptile one where they will charge you 4 times as much for exactly the same thing. Look online, you will find heat cables much, much cheaper. And just because it hasn't got a reptile label doesn't mean it's no good. So, you know, a little bit of common sense, it all does the same job. But again, put it on a thermostat. And then if you've got them on the wall like this, a simple piece of wood along the back with your cable going like that around the back on a thermostat will keep these enclosures lovely and warm. Keep them perfect. That's all you need. It doesn't have to be any more. Now, we did have a subscriber contact us recently, and they've been advised by a reptile shop to use a heat lamp over the top of their mesh to warm their spider. Now, I thought we'd gone way beyond all this by now, but unfortunately, as you will see in the trade, especially the reptile trade, it is terrible for it. All they want to do is sell you something. And what I'm going to say to you now is do not, under any circumstances, use a heat bulb, a ceramic bulb, above your tarantula. You will end up cooking it. And they're just too aggressive. They're far too much. They dry everything out really, really strong. They draw all the moisture out. It's gone, vanished. And one of the reasons it's really hard with spiders and things is because we generally keep them in much smaller enclosures. They're not like snakes. They don't need to thermoregulate in that same way as snakes do. Snakes benefit from a ceramic heat, but they're also normally in a 3 or a 4 foot enclosure or bigger, and they can move away. And this is what we call thermoregulating their temperature. So the further away they get, the cooler they become. As they cool down and they need more warmth, they move closer to the heat source. And they can cope with high temperatures much easier than our arachnids. So whatever you do, do not use heat lamps above your spiders. They are So dangerous, really, really dangerous. So please don't ever use them. So what we're going to use is either a heat cable or a heat mat, a general heat mat. Now, when we come to doing heat mats, again, the advice that all these shops give you is completely wrong. They all ask you to put the mat underneath your enclosure. This is a really, really bad idea. I can't stress this enough. It's a terrible idea. If you're going to use a heat mat, get the correct wattage for your size enclosure, and you want to put it on the side or on the back where you're not going to see it. So it's literally, so if this was the back of the enclosure, it would be on here, and we can tape it to that and it will be all right. It will sit on there. This gives your spider room to move away from it should it want to cool down, and it's easier for you to actually check the temperature. When you check the temperature, you want to put your probe in the middle of the enclosure, not up against the glass, in the middle of the enclosure, and that will actually read what the air temperature is, because that's what you're interested in. You want the air temperature. Now, the reason we don't put them on the bottom of the enclosure is because as the heat rises up through the substrate, your spider gets warm. Many spiders, especially those from like Africa, any of these hot countries, what do to escape the heat? They burrow down. So your spider is going to sit there, he's going to feel that heat coming up through the floor, and he's going to think, bloody hell, it's going to be a hot day today. Better get my butt down there. And he starts digging a hole, and he's dig. No matter how much substrate you got in there, if your heat mat is on the bottom, he is digging to the hotter and hotter. Unfortunately, your spider is not sensible enough to understand that digging deeper is getting closer to the heat, because thousands of years have told him, if you want to escape the heat, dig down, keep going down. So they keep going down, and they're just getting closer and closer to the heat. You will, in effect, eventually cook your poor spider, because he will be trying to escape, and all he's doing is digging to his death. So don't put heat mats on the bottom of your enclosure. Always put them on the sides or on the back, on the ends, anywhere, but not underneath. And we don't want them on the top either. It's not going to make any difference on the top. So just put them on the sides. So when you think about it in a logical way, and you think about your spider and how he lives, these are all reasonably common sense things. But if you're new to the hobby, and you're coming in, and you know, what do? You go to your local shop, because they're the guys that know everything, aren't they? You know, that's where you're expecting to get your best advice. Unfortunately, many of the shops, not all, but many of the shops, especially some of the real popular ones, things like Pets at Home, places like that, they don't always have the correct information. You know, not everybody working in the shops are trained in what you're asking for. So take the advice, think about it, go home, research, do your own stuff as well, but just add a little bit of common sense and you'll be fine. So that's heating out of the way. This is what we do with our heating. Now, there is quite a bit of grey stuff in the middle of all of that, but you get the general gist. Now, what we're going to do now, we're going to have a little look into our Balfouri communal, because we've been asked a lot lately about how is your Balfouri communal doing. Well, as you can see down here, they have webbed it to hell. And look, they don't stop webbing. They're constantly webbing. And you can see now as well how much they've grown. They really have grown. What we can do, we can open the door. There we go. And you can see how much, I mean, they really have grown. They're doing exceptionally well now. Now, most of these, the females are now just around about of a breeding age. So there is a possibility that we could end up getting an egg sac or so from them. While we're mentioning the egg sacs with the Balfouris, we have had an absolutely terrible year with our egg sacs. We were due to have 2 hatch out this week, and on checking them, both of them have been destroyed, and we've got no reason to understand why. We just do not understand why, especially considering the Balfouri is one of the easiest spiders to breed. So we're at a complete loss at the moment. We're not sure what's going on. Now, one of the other things that, that I've done for many years now is literally I spray my Balfouries. So what we're going to do, we've got our sprayer, and we're going to give it a bit of a spray down. You see they all disappear, they all run away. And we get a good bit of moisture in there. There we go. Now you might be sitting there thinking, oh my God, what has he done? The Balfouria is a dry species and now it's an aquatic species. Yeah, look at that. Look at all the crickets that come out. I'm going to throw them back in. They get in the runner. There we go. Go back in there. Cheeky little so-and-sos. So what we're going to do now, we're going to leave them be. And the chances are, I'll give them a bit of time. Here they are. Look, they're coming out now. And they'll come out for a drink. Now you might think that that was a lot of water that just went in there. In our particular setup, we have a constantly warm room. There is a steel mesh top on this enclosure. This is full mesh. So we get good evaporation. Here she comes. She's coming up for a drink now. They get good evaporation. So it's not a problem. And despite what you think and what you've seen, Balfouri do actually appreciate a little bit of water. They really do well on it. Now, if we come next door, we can have a look. We can open this side here, and we can have another look at our geniculata, the giant Brazilian giant white knee. Now, you would have remembered a few weeks ago we done a video of her molting, and this has now been, she molted out on the 23rd of the 11th. So what is that? It's about 3. So how many weeks is that? It's about 3 weeks or so, just over 3 weeks. And you would have remembered me saying that she takes on average around about 4 weeks to fully harden up. Now this spider has not moved from the patch that she's sitting on now. She has turned round and faced the other way, but that's as far as she's gone. And you'll still see there that her legs are still a little bit kinky. You see how they sort of like, all of her front legs are actually looking good now. Her back legs, you notice there's still a little bit of movement there where they don't look like they're fully set. And this is nearly 4 weeks on. So she's almost dried out. So we are now, what was it, the 14th today? It's the 14th today. I would imagine probably just before Christmas. Yeah, I should think about Christmas. We will actually offer her first food item. So she's not been fed since the she molted on the 23rd of the 11th, and she wasn't fed probably 3 weeks or so before that. So she's gone nearly 2 months, I would imagine, without food. And as you can see, it makes no difference to her whatsoever. They don't need feeding every day. So she's looking really good. We're done there. If we come up, we can have a little look at our GBB, which is in here. This is one of our adult females, and she is getting ready to be paired. And if you remember, this was the GBB that didn't like to web anything up. And we kept her on a really dry situation. And we kept her on Beardy Life. And it didn't really work. We paired her when she was on that. She did produce a sac and then she ate it. So we figured it was just probably a bit too dry, and she didn't really web anything up at all. As you can see now, she has webbed everything. And it looks absolutely phenomenal. One of the things that we found that did work here is you'll see inside here, this is plastic plant. There's no point putting real plant in there. But the plastic plant worked really well because it gave her loads and loads of anchor points. You'll also note here, if you come down And you can see here how dark the soil is. This soil is actually got quite a high moisture content in it. So it's not wet, but there's a lot of moisture content within that soil. And she seems to thrive on this. So this, again, like the Balfouri, this is a dry species, but it does benefit from this moisture and what have you that we're getting. Yeah, there's one. As we pop back down to the Balfouri now, we can see down here they're coming out for a drink. So they're just coming through. Always a good sign. If you've not seen your Balfouris in a communal and they've not been active, you've not seen them, spray the web down. And I guarantee you they'll come out one after the other, all for a drink and a little wander around and see what's going on. You'll see more activity then than at any other time. Really cool. We get a nice shot looking back at that, a wide shot. You can see exactly what they've done with it all. Now, it's taken some months for them to get to this stage, but they are constantly rebuilding it, tearing it down, making new stuff. That is just full of tunnels. And we see an awful lot of activity in there at different times. Another one coming out there now. You can see down the side there. Look at that one coming through. Such beautiful spiders. Now these were fed a few days ago, and as you would have seen there's still some live crickets running around, which is not a bad sign with these guys. We don't mind seeing a few crickets. It means that everyone's getting their fill. They're all looking really good. So it's a nice way to monitor what we've got. See, they're all starting to come out now. Right, so what we'll do, we'll have a look at some of the other bits and pieces, have a little catch up, and we come back over to the back of the room. Now you would have remembered we rehoused our young Macrothelli gigas a little while ago, and these have been in here now around about a week, and we can now have a little look and see what they've done. Look at that. Now you would have remembered we put the moss in here so that they didn't bolt out when we moved them over. There he is there, he's just sitting there. Remember what we said? If they got their head in the ground, I'll move that there. If they've got their head in the ground and their bums in the air, they're invisible. And that's just what that one's doing now. He's invisible. But you can see here, they've webbed up all of this top, webbed up all round here. Absolutely incredible. What we can do is we can tip a little cricket in just to see whether maybe they're hungry. Might not be. Oh. Will she notice that? No, I don't think so. Ooh, getting close. She got her head stuck in the... Oh, whoa, look at that. Did she get him? No. He's actually below her. I don't think she quite got that. But you know what? That was so cool. We're going to try another. Let's try another one. Right. How about this one? This one's out and about. Don't disappear on me. We'll just pop that there. And what we're going to do is same again, we'll just drop a cricket in. Go that way. No, not down there. How are we meant to see you down? Oh, no, it's chasing our funnel web. Oh, it's turned round. You see, look at that. It's like a stalemate now. Doesn't want to move. Yeah! She's got it. I'll turn that. There you go. And she's having a good old munch on there. She'll get a nice close-up of that. Now for this size spider, that's quite a small meal. So if needs be, we would actually give them another one in a few days. You can see the size of those fangs in comparison to the rest of its body. They are huge. Very cool. That was nice, wasn't it? What we'll do now is, as we've got her out, we'll give her some water as well. There we go. Just do a little bit. Well, that was a nice treat, wasn't it? It's always good watching these guys feed. They are really, really cool. We don't always get to see it because despite their reputation, they are actually quite nervous. So quite often when we disturb them, they'll go and hide. They're not the nasty, dangerous things we're led to believe. Right, now then, let's have a look at some of the things that we've bred this year. Here we have our Mirandas, and these are just starting to pop. You would have remembered when they first went in, as you can see, some of these guys, you see like here, this one here, quite yellow, and this one here has got black legs. You see the difference? And that's because this one is getting ready to molt. Here's a molt already, where one of them's molted out. So they're literally, you can see the different stages. Some are a little bit more advanced, but even these ones here, these light yellow ones, it's not going to take them long, and they will be ready as well. So that was our Piscithera Mirandas. They've been they're coming on really, really nicely. Now you'd have remembered we bred our Ornatas as well. They didn't do so well, and that was a poor egg sac from when we pulled it. There was a lot of bad things going on with that egg sac, and unfortunately not all of them made it. So we had a good percentage come through, but we lost a lot as well. So it's not always perfect. Now these are our Chilobrachys cayenne kraken. We've got to be careful now because these guys have just popped as well. Look at that. Now you can see here, this one has only just molted, and you notice he's quite white still, whereas this one molted a little while ago. So he's black. And then if you see this one down here, this one has yet to molt again. If we can see him. You see how he's quite a little way behind. So when he molts next time, he'll come out looking like one of these. There's that one. That's a freshly molted one there. Aren't they wonderful? Look at that. You can see all the molts under here. These are all the molts. One hiding up here. I don't blame him getting out of the way, to be fair. Now there's 280 of them in here. So camera lady's going to be very, very busy. So we have that pot there. Put the lid back on. And we've got another pot here. And these are, oh, look at that. I don't know if we're going to get the lid off these. They're all up in the lid. So there's, you're asking for trouble, camera lady. You know it. If the video stops abruptly, it's because we've got 230 odd krakens on the loose and we need to catch them up. There we go. So what we do now is we just, that initial shock would have got them all moving. So now we just hold fire. There's a couple on the lid. If we want to keep them on the lid, we keep the lid at the same angle it was when it was on there. There you go. Now look in the pot. And you can see where they're all up the sides. They've all popped around about the same time, which is what we'd expect. So I think we've got about 550 or so, 600. And you notice now the ones on the lids haven't really gone anywhere. I'll turn it over. There you go. As soon as we move the lid, look at that, they start moving around. We put it back the way they were, they should settle down again, you see. Nice little tip there. Any spider, whether it's an adult or a youngster, no matter what it is, whatever it's sitting on, if you keep it at the same angle that it's sitting on, it generally will be okay. We have one there that's just popped out. One little kraken. That weren't bad, was it? One runner out of 600.
Oh, such an anticlimax.
We don't want them running everywhere, camera lady.
It would have been funny.
No. Right. That's them. Aren't they wonderful? Really, really cool. And we keep them in here now. We often get asked now with the things like the krakens, we've got an awful lot in a pot. And will they start eating each other? Generally, once these have turned to slings, which is what they are now, they've molted into slings, so they're perfect little spiders. Generally, we'll have a week, maybe 2 weeks, before they start munching on each other. So that gives us time to get them all sorted out, and we can get them into individual pots, where they then go into pots like this. And in here, these are our Samopaeus pulchers. You can have a look in there. And as you can see, these are really, really growing well now. These were tiny, just like the krakens when they were first hatched out. So they've grown substantially. And you also notice there, you look in that pot and you think, blimey, look at that, that's a bit messy, isn't it? You know, it's a bit dirty. And all it is really is just bits of dried soil, webbing, everything else. As long as you've not got rotting food in there, everything is going to be fine. As you can see, these guys are really getting big. Lovely big abdomens on them. You can see that one there. Looking really, really nice. Now, another thing that we often get asked is, are these guys going to bite us at this age? Now, generally, I would say no. They're normally okay. And when they're small, especially when they're tiny like that, they don't do any harm at all. They're not going to cause you any harm or discomfort. Although, once they get to that sort of size, they are capable of giving a little nip. If we look into these are Regalis. These are our youngsters. Now, we are still selling these as slings, but as you can see, that is not a sling anymore. This is a small juvie, really. This is really grown on. I mean, he's getting on for like 5 centimeters or so. So he's actually becoming quite a big spider. And you can also see how within this pot, we can still get another molt, maybe 2 molts in this enclosure before we need to move him on. You see how calm he is? Very, very cool. Beautiful spiders. If you're interested in your Poecilotheria, the Regalis is one that I class as like a beginner Poecilotheria. They are really, really cool spiders. Nice and easy to look after. He is capable of giving you a nip at that size. But again, if they get out and they run across you, don't panic. He's not looking to cause you any harm. He just wants to go and hide somewhere, which normally is up my sleeve or, you know, inside my shirt or something. That's where he wants to go. He wants to go in the dark, hide away. So generally speaking, they're not going to bother you. We've got, what else we got here? Here's a lovely little spider. Oh, she's run away. She's run away. Oh no, she's come back out again. This is a young ruffulata. If we can get her to come round. Look at that. She would stop right where the water is. We don't want to lose her. There you go. Look at the colouring on that.
You need to turn her to me.
See the colouring? Absolutely beautiful. Well, this is a young ruffulata, and she's probably, oh, I don't know. She's probably getting on for 6-7 centimetres. Maybe more actually. Probably 8 or 9 centimetres. So that's what we class as a really nice grown on sling or a small juvie. And at this sort of size, this is very capable of giving you a little bite. But again, they're not out to get you. So the chances of you being bitten by it are very, very slim. Now, this is something actually we use a lot of. Fruit flies. We're covering everything today, aren't we? Now, I'm not going to open that up because that is absolutely humming with fruit flies. I don't know if you can see that. Does it pick it up? That is a live with fruit flies. And this one is full of maggots. So this one, the square one, you can see all the maggots all around in the lid. They're everywhere. Now, we use a lot of fruit flies. And I think what we'll do, if you're interested in it, I don't know if anyone, we haven't thought whether it would be useful, but maybe we can do a video showing you how we propagate our fruit flies and we do our cultures and we get them going, because a culture at the shop is around about £3, £4 for a culture. You can buy one culture and then make all your own. So much cheaper, save you a fortune. And we use a lot of these for things like our young slings. When we have a lot of slings all together, we can dump a whole load of these in. We've also got some of our true spiders. They like the fruit flies, so we do use a lot of them. So maybe there's another pot there. Maybe we can do a video and show how we propagate our fruit flies. I think that would be a cool video. Right, I think. Well, one last look at our Balfouri before we go. Look at them, you see they're all coming out. There's one there come out for a drink. There's one at the back there, you can see it moving around in the hole. They're everywhere. And you can see how she's drinking, although they've got water in the bowl, she's drinking the moisture off of the web. Really, really cool. Very smart. Now, one of the other things that you'll notice when you have a commune like this is you will be constantly pulling out males. So every time you pull a couple of males out, your numbers are going down. We started with this commune with, I think it was 34. And I do believe we probably had 7 males out of there so far. And they're still popping out. In fact, that one looks like a male there. That is a male there. This one here, this is a male. These are females. There we go. Yes, that's a mature male. He's just come along and had a good drink. See how, look, he's hunkered down. And he's straight back on there, getting the moisture out of the web. Very, very cool. Wonderful stuff. We can sit and watch them for hours. Right, we're going to close the door now. By the way, this door has been open for the whole time that we've done this video. And we haven't had a single Balfouri go walkabout. Isn't that good? Very, very cool. Right then. Well, I think that will just about do it today. Poor old camera lady is slowly cooking and wasting away behind the camera. Time to go get her a cup of tea. Right then, don't forget, be calm, be gentle, and love your spider. I'll see you soon, guys.